Thank you for coming back.
Oh, it's great to be back with you.
We had quite a decent discussion. You had so many callers last time. One of the stories around at the moment, and I think it was just earlier this week, something like the uptake of EVs, 100,000 cars on the road around the country and around 1,000 chargers. The infrastructure not keeping pace with people buying EVs. And maybe that's surprised the authorities, the people behind all of this.
Well, I think this is reflected in why governments a couple of years ago started to actually invest in electric vehicle charging networks across Australia. And the South Australian government committed over $12 million to the RAA for them to start building out the South Australia's electric vehicle charging network. And now we see the NRMA coming through, so motoring organisations are playing a big role. And the NRMA is supported by the federal government. So that reflects that there was what we'd say is a market failure, where customers, everyone seems to be aspiring to buy an electric vehicle, and these chargers need to be built out so that we can escape our home environment.
How long before we can drive across a Nullarbor?
Well, there's already brave souls doing it right now.
Really? Yeah.
Yep. So I think when you do those trips, it does mean planning, and it requires time, a lot more time than most people would be prepared to commit, and patience.
Yeah. EV's the long-term answer, because we hear about it at the moment in Adelaide. This week, a hydrogen bus, if not two, have started a trial on the Adelaide Metro system. Are they the answer, or are they the short-term fill-in, or maybe they're a mix moving forward? Is hydrogen going to be the way vehicles are fueled in 10, 20 years' time?
Well, I think at the moment we're trying everything.
Okay.
It's the right tool for the job is what we're really looking for. Battery electric vehicles are gaining dominance globally, but that doesn't mean that we should stop testing alternative technology. So those buses are really important because there are routes in Adelaide out to Noarlunga, out to Gawler, those really long routes on hot days where we do need to be looking at what other technologies might be needed, and hydrogen is one of those that needs to be tested.
And up to the hills to Mount Lofty as well, a bus load of people on a 40-degree day to Mount Barker would be a challenge for a battery bus, I imagine.
It actually doesn't do too bad.
Really?
So that has been modelled. It's and particularly when you think about on the way back, is the battery gets charged coming down the hill.
Yeah.
So it actually makes a quite energy efficient. To use a battery electric bus up and down a hill.
On that point, I think the last time we were talking about this with trucks, not with you, but came up in conversation here, somebody said, well, what happens with trucks, battery trucks that, just have a drive neutral reverse switch in them? How do they, coming down the hill, stick to 40 k's an hour if they're not using their brakes? What is do they have speed retarders on them?
So this is where the motors to go from being a motor to being a generator.
Okay.
And so they put that resistance, instead of using the brakes, which
gears, which is what we want to do with trucks coming down the hill.
So it reverses the motor to make it a generator, which then puts the energy back in the batteries.
Yeah.
Which then slows the vehicle down.
Right.
And that's really good because that means you still have the physical brakes.
Yeah.
So you've got that as a fail-safe, but they're not overheating, and so that makes those vehicles even safer than the conventional vehicles.
Okay. So they'll be able to stick to that 40k zone speed limit coming down through the tunnels and all the rest?
Absolutely.
How about that? All right. So they don't need the gears. There's no gear shift on them, is there, in terms of the traditional sense? That's
right. So when we look at the trucks that are emerging, they do remove that the gear shift, which simplifies it for the driver.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount of respect for truck drivers going through all their gears.
Oh, yeah.
So simplifying that experience. So that technology is still under development, and it'll be really interesting to see how it is deployed onto our roads. Yeah, moving forward. All right. Questions for Peter Nattrass from Mines and Energy. EV expert. What he doesn't know isn't worth knowing. 82230000 is the number. But what happens with batteries long term? I mean, we hear this a lot, particularly people who are critical of it. The batteries run out of puff, 10 years, whatever it takes, and at the moment they can't be, or they're not recycled, are they? There is certainly a lot of companies internationally. So we see one of the leading founders of Tesla JB Strawball. So he set up a company in America which is called Redwood Materials. There's a company in Australia that's now partnered with Mercedes, and that's called Primobius. And they have 95% recovery on nickel, cobalt, manganese, and we're just waiting to see what their lithium recovery rates are. So very recyclable. And cost effective. So the materials in these batteries, the latest numbers are there's like $10,000 worth of materials at the end of life. It costs $4,000 to $5,000 to recover those materials. So very economic to recycle these batteries.
Okay, and I imagine that cost will come down over time as well in terms of getting stuff out of them. They'll get better at it. There'll be different ways.
Yep, they'll become more efficient.
Yeah.
And it's all, of course, it's the materials are very valuable.
Yeah.
So it depends on what those commodity prices are, the chemical prices.
All right. Let's have a chat with Dennis at Glanville, who's called in. Dennis, good morning.
Good morning, both of you. What does it actually cost to recharge your battery? No one's ever mentioned that.
Sure. So I'll speak of my personal experience with charging our car. So we've got a Hyundai, and if I look at going to Renmark to visit my parents, charging at home during the middle of the day, I'm paying sort of 8 cents a kilowatt hour, which is very cheap, and that reflects, it's good to charge when South Australia has lots of renewables. And it's only a couple of dollars, $2 or $3 for me to be able to drive to Renmark, compared to, a lot more. $40, $50.
Yeah.
So it's much cheaper. That's home charging.
Yeah.
So, Dennis, your question, about what does it cost to charge, 90 to 95% of what an electric vehicle driver would be charging, well, they'll do it at home. That's the beauty of an electric vehicle is we've all got power points. We've all got the ability to charge at our home base. When we're away, though, it does get to public charging. And that is where we are looking more in that sort of, $20, $30, $40, more parity with petrol car because it's expensive infrastructure.
Yeah. All right. Dennis?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was his question. You can join Dennis. 82230000 is the number. So we've seen more and more of those charges. I know driving down Port Road, for instance, they're every couple of k's, it seems, in the median strip in the car parks that are along there. So more and more are going in. They're privately owned, I imagine. Someone's seen an opportunity. A bit like a vending machine, aren't they? Someone puts them there and hopes they get used.
Yep. Whenever new technology comes through, we see the entrepreneurs come out. And those jolt charges that are through Port Road, that's again supported by the Australian government, ARENA, Australian Renewable Energy Agency. And that's supporting those businesses to come up with the products that are needed. And it's a great example of where local government are leaders in supporting action, on reducing carbon emissions. Port Adelaide, Enfield, Campbelltown. There's some councils enabling those charges to be on their land.
Yeah. The argument that when the battery is spent, the car's done, it's finished. So potentially 10 to maybe 15 years if you're lucky. Is that valid? Is that a valid argument?
Well, if we look at the warranties are really important when you're buying a car. And we see that the leading brands, the Hyundais, the Teslas, they are giving you a 7-8 year warranty on the battery, and it's just like your solar panels. It's guaranteed minimum amount of its original capacity when you get 8 years down the track, and that's that 80% of its original capacity. So that's is most people will be buying a vehicle and having 80% of charge is still perfectly reasonable for their normal use of that vehicle. Okay,
so but what is the life on average? Is it about 10? Is it 12? How many years?
Well, I think it's more sort of representative to look at how many hundreds of thousands of kilometres you'll get.
Yeah.
And so it's a few 100,000 kilometres.
Right.
In reality.
Which is about the average length of a car anyway, isn't it?
Exactly right. And that's where there's a lot of talk about million-mile batteries, and there are batteries out there that at the moment some of these sort of chemistries that are being deployed that are capable of that. So I was reading an article yesterday where there's a Tesla in Germany that's just been pulled in by the motoring authority there, and it's 1.5 million kilometres.
Really?
Yep. Okay. So it's had a battery change, but that's still it had the same brakes for 50,000 kilometres.
Right.
It's very, very good outcomes. And we're now getting more evidence around when these cars are released into the wild, how they actually perform.
Lithium, mining for it. Is lithium finite, firstly? Do we only have a certain amount of lithium we're aware of?
Well, it depends who you listen to.
Okay. I'm listening to you.
If you listen to Elon Musk, it's everywhere.
Yeah,
it is everywhere, and but it all comes down to what's economic to mine and process.
Okay.
And what's really good about lithium, like nickel and even steel, is they are infinitely recyclable. And so what we will see is that, the current age that we live in is a single-use mining era, where we dig up coal, we burn it. Yeah. Fossil fuels, burn it. Yeah. But when we look at circular economies, where South Australians are fantastic recyclers, and that's where we're moving to, is where these minerals will be mined and then recycled through our economy and have multiple uses.
Okay. Is lithium the only way to create a battery for an electric car? I mean, are we moving away from that or finding other sources?
It's the lightest weight and with the highest energy density. So there is a lot of talk around sodium-ion batteries, but they're heavier. And they're more likely to be used in stationary energy storage, like the Tesla battery up at Jamestown.
Okay, all right. John has called in. I think somebody else on the line as well. We need to take a break, so hang on there, John, and we'll get to you right after these words.
AFL legend Lethal Lee Matthews joins Rowie and Timmy G each week on The Sports Show to discuss all things AFL. Thanks to Costco Energy Group, leading specialists in solar power, air conditioning and home automation. Costco.com.au.
See Alpha Industries at the show for incredible deals across the range. Do your homework. Bring us your best written quote at the show so we can do you a better deal. Residential or commercial, from design through to construction, trust Alpha Industries to create the perfect space for you at heavily reduced prices. See you at the show. Alpha Industries, building for South Australia.
Don't miss our springtime stock clearance at Explorer Caravans, 345 Prospect Road.
With vans ready to go right now, this is a genuine stock clearance.
Save big dollars on big Aussie brands like Franklin and Viscount.
Talk to factory reps on site for all the info and even more value.
Free sausage sizzle and savings galore from September 1 to 3.
Don't miss it. Explorer Caravans, 345 Prospect Road.
Now, do you like coffee, or do you maybe love coffee? If you don't, well, you will once you taste the blend your taste buds have been waiting for your whole life. And you can find that blend at Simply Coffee. They serve fresh and traditionally roasted coffee beans in store every day, so you can take a taste of heaven home with you. And they are masters of beanology. They've been to uni for it. They've got a beanology degree. They understand every coffee connoisseur has their own flavour. They will find yours with a selection of 18 beans from across the globe and unlimited blends as well. And they can mix it up for you according to what you taste and like. It's kind of like a what do you call it? The coffee door. Not a wine door. It's a coffee door. You can go in, have a taste, and from that selection, they will give you either fresh beans or an espresso-compatible capsule, a blend of what you've tasted. So go in, meet Pete and his team, find your ideal grind, and upgrade from coffee made with love to coffee made with passion. Peter, Sally, Lucy, they work in the shop, serving their customers there over 18 years. Simply Coffee. It's a cellar door. That's what I was looking for. A cellar door for coffee lovers. Visit their Kenttown store or order online at simplycoffee.com.au.
It's always been my happy place. When the old arthritis set in, I thought my gardening days were over. Suffered for a while, actually. Nearly kicked myself when Carol told me about the joint replacement clinic. There's no gap to pay with health insurance and everything's included. Transport, physio, aftercare. They really look after you. Turns out I didn't need to fork out a cent to keep my trowel.
Ask your GP or visit thejointreplacementclinic.com.au. Renewing mobility, restoring life.
Right now with Bupa, get up to 12 weeks free when you join on eligible products. Plus, we'll waive the 2 and 6 month waiting periods on extras. T's and C's apply. Offer ends soon, so search Bupa 12 weeks free today.
Right now in Australia, we are the most overweight, depressed, medicated and addicted cohort of adults there's ever been. So clearly, something's wrong with modern life. I'm Paul Taylor, and my podcast, the Paul Taylor Podcast, explores the science and tools around mindset, nutrition, exercise, recovery and human behaviour to help you optimise your happiness and your health span. Sound appealing? Give it a try. Follow the Paul Taylor Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah.
Stream FIVEaa in crystal clear sound at the touch of a button, wherever you are.
Matthew Pantelis on FIVEaa Mornings.
9 minutes to 12 o'clock. 7 News on FIVEaa coming up at midday. 15 degrees in the city. In the studio with me is Peter Nattrass. He is manager of Future Industries, Department of Energy and Mining. Knows all there is to know about EVs. I've got that on record from your assistant here, Peter, so that you can take that one back to the office. John has called in from Somerton Park. G'day, John.
G'day, Matt. No one ever talks about the mining of the rare earth minerals for the batteries, etc. in Failtail, Mongolia, how dirty and filthy, toxic, and how energy hungry it all is. Anyway, that's just a comment. But in California last year, the governor asked anyone with an EV not to charge them because they didn't have enough power. Because they've done the same stupid thing that we do here in Australia. Got rid of all their coal-fired power stations. So how are we going to charge these things if everyone has one? We cannot possibly do it. It's magical thinking. I think I'm correct.
Yeah, John, look, this is a genuine challenge that we are engaged in. So the important thing is that we have the technology, and we also have the electricity network that is capable of taking these vehicles. So when we look at our normal demand on South Australia's electricity network, it's about 1,400 megawatts. But our peak, when it's 40-something degrees and all the air conditioners on, there's over 3,300 megawatts of demand that people are using. And the network's got a lot more capacity than that. And so where we're deploying the technology is in smart charging, is to charge, as we say, when the sun shines and the wind blows, and it's not at 5 till 9 o'clock when everyone wants their air conditioners on. It's about using that electricity network more like smart. And that's actually how electricity costs come down for everyone, is when we put more electricity across that electricity network, we can spread the cost of that network across more energy. And so it delivers good outcomes for all customers. There will be challenges like any transition, but that's where the companies are very aware of those challenges.
All right, John. Thank you. Thank you for the call. Regarding fast charging, just on that, does that damage the battery? Too many fast chargers? Does it, deplete it long term?
Yeah, so that's why it's the best way to charge your car is at home. It's
overnight or whatever.
Yeah, because the batteries don't like heat. That's the silent killer of a electric vehicle battery, or even your phone battery. Yeah. Is when they get heat in them, that's when it causes chemical reactions. Right. And so that public high speed, the rapid charging. Yeah. That's why that's when you're on the highway. It's not an every day event. Yes. That's best, like what we'd say, battery care. Yeah. Yeah. It's charge it slow. Yep. Rather than always rapid.
Yeah. All right. That's interesting. Internal combustion engine cars, are they going to be around for a long time or not?
Well, I certainly know people that will make sure they are. Okay. So there's people who have their HSVs and their Hiluxes. Yeah. Those vehicles.
Or the 23 Dodge.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because they play a really important role in our daily lives. They are a lot of people identify closely to a brand. And like we saw leaded petrol phased out, we'll see that, there will be, 40 years time, it'll be harder to get petrol, or diesel will probably last a bit longer. Yeah. But it'll just become less available. Like we're seeing natural, like the gas LPG is sort of starting to disappear at our petrol stations. It'll take a lot of time because there's 1.1 million cars on South Australia's roads, which means there's a lot of, existing demand for petrol and diesel.
All right. The LPG is interesting, isn't it? Because there was a time, and the government, 20 years ago was